get in there on Sunday. Remember, every Sunday beginning at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. you can listen to Sharp Talk with the Honorable Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton with his co-host, the mighty attorney at war, Brother Alton H. Maddox. That's on WLIP 1190 AM radio. But now, let me bring to you our own attorney at war, the mighty Michael Hardy.
Right, no justice. No justice. No justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. All right. Hug the person or shake the person next to you. Tell them you love them. And we are here again for another week, standing tall, as always, after a full week. And as we know, our president, the good Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, is traveling on behalf of the network this week down in the Caribbean and in the Caribbean Basin, where he is in Jamaica attending a conference and representing us, and there's a planned trip, a state trip, if you will, to Cuba at the end of that, and we're looking forward to that. Down there in Cuba, where the Cuban papers this week called Florida a banana republic. But as always, let me just do this so I don't forget. But on Saturday, November 18th, while they fighting about everything else, we're going to be honoring one of our troopers and somebody who has meant a lot to us, and that's our brother, Dr. C. Eugene Cooper. Brother Yanni Youngblood and June Towns, who you just heard, and others from the Canaan Mass Choir will be here, so we want everybody out next Saturday to participate in that. And of course, with regard to the protest against the federal death penalty that we just heard Lucy talk about, that is on Tuesday, November 14th at 5 p.m. for those that did not get the time. Now, without further ado, as always, when our president is traveling, we often have the pleasure of having our chairman of the board come to us and give us the keynote message. And as I bring him up, and he really needs no introduction to us, this is his house, and we all know who he is. We all know what he does for us and the direction that he has given us over these last few years to make us the national organization that we are, so that when Paula goes out to Los Angeles, she won't miss us, because we'll be out there also. We'll keep her busy out there. But as I bring them, let me say this, and many of us know, and hopefully most of us participated in the election this week here in New York, and there can be no doubt as to the impact that we as a community had on this election. And one of the reasons why we bring candidates here is we intend to make them address our issues in this upcoming year, because they got no free ride. But all across the country, we as a community, the African American community, the communities of color have played a very, very significant role. And no matter who wins in Florida, we know here in this house that elections can be stolen. We went through that ourselves in the 1997 campaign. So we know that the vote is important because we have an agenda that we must push. But regardless of what happens in Florida, we have to really take heart and think about the struggles that we may have over the next 4 years. And there is no one who really knows better of what that means and who helped lead the struggle to get us to vote when we were people totally excluded from this nation as our chairman, the Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. So let's give him a good House of Justice welcome this morning.
I've just come back in the last 6 or 7 days from the mother country. I've been in Ghana, West Africa. I I went on an on-site visit with 9 of my disciples. My congregation supports a clinic and a school over there of some 350 children in Kumasi in a section called Apatrapa. When we started 2 years ago, we had 20 students. We have over 350 now. And I felt the need to go and see it for myself. And their classrooms are nothing more than lean-tos, and it inspired me to promise them that we're going to help them build a new school with brick and mortar. Brothers and sisters in the homeland. I'm delighted to see my friend and colleague, Dr. Joseph Ben Johanan, today. And you should know that Medgar Evers College on December 6th is going to honor his work as an Egyptologist with an honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters. Give Dr. Ben a hand. I hope you can be there when he's honored on December 6th, Wednesday, December 6th. I talked to the president this morning, and he gave me my marching orders. You know, I'm his pinch hitter, and every once in a while the pinch hitter gets a chance, and sometimes he gets a single, sometimes he hits a long fly ball that the guy goes all the way to the wall and catches. But I'm trying to hit a home run today. I want you to know I'm going to be swinging hard at the ball. Good morning to all of you who subscribe to our theme, No Justice, No Peace. We welcome you to our National Action Weekly broadcast, especially those of you in our radio audience who have tuned in from your home or work or on your car radios. No justice, no peace. As you know, our president is visiting the island nation of Jamaica, carrying the message of freedom and justice to our brothers and sisters there. And when he's finished with the annual convention of Carib News, he's going on to see my friend in Havana, Brother Fidel Castro. And one of the items for the next 4 years is to see that the embargo against against Cuba is lifted. Today is Veterans Day, and it is appropriate that we are reminded that those of us of African and Latino ancestry have served this nation in every military conflict in which this nation has been involved. We were there in Boston during the Revolutionary War, which freed the colonies from England's domination. We fought in the War of 1812 and the so-called Spanish-American War. Escaped slaves bolstered the forces of the Union Army and turned the tide in the Civil War, many of them making the supreme sacrifice with their lives. In World War I, we left many of our patriot soldiers in European cemeteries, and those who survived returned to a land of lynching and segregation, broken in body and spirit because the promises of full citizenship remained unkept. Then World War II came, and we were joined by Native Americans who had been pushed onto reservations in this land of the free and home of the brave. We fought that great war against Hitler and Mussolini in segregated military units. The new spirit of black GIs contributed to the desegregation of the military under Harry Truman. Since then, we served in the Korean, Vietnam, and Gulf Wars. And in recent days, black soldiers have received medals and honors due them over a half a century ago. It is only a continuing reminder that we must remain vigilant on the justice issues. So wherever you are in this moment, let us pause for a moment and honor in silence the living and dead veterans of the United States of America. Lest we forget, a moment of silence, please. Amen. Now the business at hand today is to find a way to get a president of this nation. It's been 5 days since the national election, and no one yet has a clue as to who our president-elect is going to be. George W. is complaining that Mr. Gore ought to concede again. All of the information available indicates clearly that the vote in Florida is not yet complete.
That's right.
Something about the computers throwing out the hole punches on the ballot that he could not read, so there has to be a manual count. We believe that everyone's vote ought to count irrespective of the glitches in the machine. Amen, lights. Early this morning, it was reported that New Mexico belongs to George W. instead of the vice president. And the citizens of Palm Beach County may have to vote all over again if they can't get an injunction against it. This is a strange way for the first election of the new millennium to begin. Oh yes, we will have to wait until Tuesday to get the count on the absentee ballots. Meanwhile, the nation must ponder how all of this will play out when the dust has settled. Now I remind you that this confusion is not without precedent. In 1824, John Quincy Adams finished second in both the popular vote and the electoral college, but by means of some political shenanigans, which may be going on in Florida, outmaneuvered Andrew Jackson to win the presidency when the election was then thrown into the House. Adams couldn't get his programs through Congress, became very unpopular, and was easily trounced by Jackson when he ran for a second term 4 years later. Then there was the foulest of all, when the Hayes-Tilden election in 1876 ended in a virtual tie and a dispute about 15 votes in the Electoral College threw the decision into the Congress. You remember that when they came out of the smoke-filled room, the deal that had been cut, the Republicans and the Southern Democrats had decided that they would pull the federal troops out of the South, most of which looked like you and me, and then it began to have a backslide in our political and economic rights, and we had to endure another 100 years of second-class citizenship, lynching, segregation, and the Ku Klux Klan. So much for Republican leadership. In 1888, Benjamin Harrison trailed Grover Cleveland by 100,000 votes, but he won in the Electoral College by a narrow margin with some alleged tainted votes. In the next election, Cleveland trounced Harrison decisively. So here we are in the year 2000. How do the French say it? Déjà vu? Without apology, I voted by absentee ballot for Mr. Gore and the straight Democratic ticket. That's right. The president, that is our president, Mr. Sharpton, informed me that Al Gore had made a pledge to sign an executive order to make racial profiling a federal offense. The truth is that I voted for Al Gore because of Bill Clinton.
Right.
The best president of the United States in my time. If you follow Bill Clinton's trail, I'm not talking about his personal morality, I'm talking about his behavior as a president of the United States. I don't know how many of us could muster and pass the test if we were judged by our personal morality. Hello, somebody. But if you look at his record as the president of the nation, he has been the most inclusive president we have ever had.
Oh, yes.
We were so happy and excited back in the 60s when Weaver became the Secretary of Housing. We had one black person in the cabinet. Now, in Clinton's administration, we've had so many black persons in the cabinet, we can't keep track of them in cabinet and sub-cabinet posts. And most of the venom that was put on Bill Clinton was not because of his personal life, but because of his inclusiveness of people in the United States. I think Al Gore made a big mistake distancing himself from Bill Clinton. Hillary won rather big, didn't she? And we don't need a recount on the Senate race here in New York. Now, if George W. prevails, which is likely, given the drift in this nation on the matter of race, the evidence is that the Democrats couldn't regain control of either the Senate or the House.
Right.
The United States has gone right-wing.
Yes.
Hello, Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell. The reality is that if Bush becomes president, black people and those similarly situated are in for 4 tough years. But not to worry, it never has been easy for us in this land. How can we expect very much humane consideration when George W. is the son of a George Bush who cynically appointed someone like Clarence Thomas to the Supreme Court to the seat once held by a Thurgood Marshall? During Clarence Thomas' tenure on the court, he has been aligned with the most conservative wing of the court, which includes Antonin Scalia. The black man who was the beneficiary of affirmative action is its most ardent enemy. Talk about self-hate. Clarence Thomas is the Bush legacy. Now there's more bad news. In the next 4 years, there will be at least 2 vacancies on the court. And if George W., who speaks of how much he loves his daddy, will make these choices, they say the chip doesn't fall far from the tree. A Bush presidency means we will have to stay on the case. We've made it all these years. We can make it 4 more if we have. If there is a Gore presidency, the next 4 years will not be a cakewalk either. Oh, somebody. There are some issues that we must keep on the national agenda. Abolition of the death penalty. Health care for every American. A woman's right of choice. Increase in the minimum wage. The reparations issue. Isn't it interesting that when black folks talk about reparations, people look at us like we're crazy. Japanese got reparations. Jews got reparations. So why do they think we any different from them? We want reparations. We had to work from kid to camp. From the time you can see to the time you can't see. For 244 years, and they never paid us a quarter. We never did get our 40 acres nor the mule. We want compounded interest. Every person of African ancestry in the United States ought to end up a multimillionaire. I told you I was in Ghana the other week. I went to Cape Coast Castle and Elmina Castle, and they refreshed my recollection that the Swedes, the Danes, the Portuguese, and the English had their hands in the Middle Atlantic slave trade. What we need to do is expand our reparation struggle beyond the United States. And we need to apply some cases against those nations who participated in that slave trade. Now there's another big issue for us in this new millennium. And that is the existence of slavery in Mauritania and in the Sudan. Now the people who are of the Muslim faith get a little bent out of shape when you put this on the table. Because in Mauritania, no Muslims are slaves. And all of the black indigenous Africans are slaves, and they happen to be Muslim also. So they're not slaves because they're Muslim. They're slaves because they're black. Same thing is almost true in the Sudan. And they got some money going down to Mauritania, which our State Department has put its blessing on. They ought not be getting any money from the United States in the cancellation of debt until they get rid of slavery in that nation. That is the issue for the third millennium. And another popular subject in white America. Self-determination for the Palestinians. I have been labeled since 1970-something. When I stood in my pulpit, I had just come back from one of my several trips to the Middle East, that which they call the Middle East. You know, that's an aberration that Europeans together. Then there's Africa, and there's Asia, and there's Europe. There's no Middle East. But they have to do that because of their interests. But in the so-called Middle East, I've been there 33 times in the last 33 years, so I'm not some joker standing on the corner making some comment. I know something about the region. I've been in the homes of Palestinians on the West Bank. I've talked to Jews who are in the political arena. I spent time in southern Lebanon and in Egypt for the last 20 years. So I know something about the region. I do not speak as a casual observer. You could almost call me, if not an expert, at least somebody who's sufficiently informed about the region. I met 2 times with my brother Yasser Arafat. They call him a terrorist. I think he's a freedom fighter like saying that the talks are hung up because Israel does not want to give up the land. They're not giving up land, they are returning land. In full violation of the Geneva Accords, there is a rule in international law that you cannot annexed land which was won in armed conflict. And yet 96% of all of the land that is now the state of Israel was once deeded Arab land.
That's right.
And they took it. They didn't buy it, they took it. And there isn't going to be any peace in the Middle East, as they call it, until the Palestinians get their land back. The statement that I got in trouble for back in the 70s, and I repeat it, all you have to do is visit one Palestinian refugee camp, and you know that the Palestinians are the niggas in the Middle East. And there isn't going to be any settlement of the issue until the Palestinians get their land back. And we as a people of struggle must support Palestinians for their right to self-determination and not be persuaded by what the Washington Post and the New York Times report, because it's controlled by people who are inimical to our real interests. Amen, like. Increase dollars for public education.
Amen.
See, our public schools are bad because you can't make bricks without straw. And we've got some alternative programs with vouchers and charter school, but that's only a temporary remedy. What we need to do is to get our public schools up to speed. Amen, like. If worse comes to worse, and George W. prevails, we've got to stay vigilant through the next 4 years, and then I'd like to see Bill Clinton run again. Yeah. I don't know whether it's all right or not, but we would have some kind of referendum on it. And I believe there are a lot of people who have benefited from his administration.
Without a doubt.
And we might have to put some controls on him, you know. Feed him some medicine to keep his libido down. But he'll be all right by and by. Now, whatever happens to us, we cannot relax our struggle for justice and peace. We cannot relax. And whatever it costs, whatever the price, whatever the struggle, whatever sacrifice, we got to be willing to make it. There's a poem I love that says to us how we must commit ourselves to the principles of peace and justice. Be under no illusion. You will gather to yourself the images of the things you love. As you go, the lights and the shapes and the shadows of the things you prefer will come to you inadvertently as bees to their hive. And in your mind and in your spirit, they will leave their distilled essence as sweet as honey or as bitter as gall. As men see the color in the wave, so shall men see in you the images of the things you prefer. Out of your eyes will look the spirit of the thing you have chosen, and in your smile or in your frown the years will speak. You will not sit, nor stand, nor walk, nor will your hand move, but you betray the one you serve. And the image thereof is written on your brow as by a revealing pen. O cleverness may select skillful words to cast a veil about you, and circumspection may ever sleep, but you will not be hid. That face of yours, which once like an unwritten page lay smooth in its baby crib, will take on lines and more lines like the parchment of an old historian who jealously set down all of the story. And in it will wrote inscribed narrative of your mental habits, the emotion of your heart, your sense of conscience, your response to duty, what you think of yourself, your fellow man, and of your God. Yes, it will all be there. For men and women become like that which they love. No justice? No peace. No justice? No peace. No justice? No peace. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. 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 Action Network membership. If you're here as we sing another refrain, you come up in line, and we're going to take you into the National Action Network's membership. Everybody say, yeah. Everybody say, yeah. If you're not a member, man, this is your opportunity to come and join right down front. Everybody say, yeah. Everybody say, yeah. Everybody say, looking for new members for National Action Network. Are there any who don't have membership? Come on up right now, we'll induct you. If Israel does not hearken, Jacob will not lose his reward.
All right. Let's give another big hand to Dr. Walker. All right. Our chairman said he wanted to hit a home run today. He knocked it out the park. That's right. But that's that history, and we've got to know it. And just before we go off the air quickly, I'd like to bring Sister Mowina, who has a guest.